Welcome back to another episode of the $1 Million Convos podcast. On this episode, we have CEO of Blue Dot Insights, Mr. Larren Peart. Larren, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. A little tired, but I'm good.
Yeah, it's a life. It's a life of the CEO life.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
So let's get right into this. Larren Peart. Now, many people know that Blue Dot and Larren Peart go hand in hand, but let's separate the two for a while,
right?
And let's explore both.
Sure.
So, Larren Peart first. Where are you coming from? What's the background like for Larren Peart, and how did you get here?
Background is from Mobay. Grew up in Mobay. Went to Cornwall for 1 year, and then my parents decided that I needed some discipline and structure, and then they sent me to the greatest all-boys school,
Which is?
In the Western Hemisphere.
Which is?
Monroe.
Okay, all right.
So I went to Monroe from second form to third form.
Yeah.
Left Monroe and went to CIT for 1 year in Mobay. CIT, Caribbean Institute of Technology.
You studied? What did you study there?
I did software engineering and web design.
Okay.
Yeah. And then both my parents lost their job. I got through to UA and UTech, and I just couldn't afford to go to university. So I had to start working. Got a job in Kingston.
Can you say the name of the company?
Yeah, Advanced Integrated Systems,
Okay.
AIS.
Oh, okay.
For Doug Halsall.
Yes.
All right.
Great. Good. Solid.
Yeah, man. Started working there. My sister at the time also got through to the med school. Because both my parents lost their jobs, the thinking then was that, all right, I would work and put her through school, and then when she finishes, then I would then put her through school.
Wow. Through med school?
Yeah. She switched and went to dentistry at some point during the period, but so that happened.
Well, I'm thinking the money are the same, close to the same, isn't it?
What's that?
The med school and the dentistry?
Yeah. So, I tried to stop telling hard luck stories, but it was a rough. Rough time.
Yeah,
man. So that happened, and I worked at AIS for 13 years.
13.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time that was my university. By the time my sister left school, I was just not interested in going back to school.
So is it that Mr. Halsall took a chance on you, or is it that?
Yeah. So I don't think at the time he knew that I was 17 when I started working there. I should have been 18. So I was there from 17 and I worked there for 13 years. And moved up through the ranks and just pretty much learned everything that I could from him at the time. And AIS is actually responsible for why I started Blue Dot, but we can definitely get into that. But after 13 years at an organization, that long, the transition period from working as an employed individual to then going on and starting your own venture. Right.
What was the instant in which you kind of realize that, okay, now is the time for me to start my own venture, right? And why now? Why did you get that inspiration at that time? Okay.
So I think I've always been entrepreneurial, whether out of necessity or just, this spirit. So like when I was at Monroe, I used to sell sweetie and them some beer.
What kind of sweetie? Black cherry?
No, at the time it was a popular thing called Nusita. I don't know if it's still around. Yeah, man. And I was bottle police at Monroe.
Bottle police?
Police.
You just go around and tell people to take out?
No, I take up the bottles to resell at the talk shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. So, and then when I moved, and when I got back to, when I left Monroe and I went back to Mobay, I had a sound system with some friends of mine. I used to put on parties and whatnot.
What was the name of your sound system?
Immortal.
Yeah,
man. Biggest sound of Mobay. Yeah, man. It was theirs, and then them kind of just wrote me in, and then we started putting on parties and whatnot. But then when I was at AIS, so AIS processes all of the health insurance claims in Jamaica and some other Caribbean islands. So every time that you swipe your Sagicor health card, they process it, and Mr. Halsall gets a percentage off of that.
Every single swipe,
yeah. So
every single.
He's make money while you sleep type guy, right? Every time you swipe it at a pharmacy, he gets 1.75%, I think, if I remember. off of that transaction. So transaction process.
So he owns the patents for all the swipe machines, ATMs, ABMs.
Well, there's some of it that's patented, but he has the contract with the insurance companies to what they call adjudicate health insurance claims electronically. All right. So anywho, so like I said, I was in IT. So every doctor's office and every pharmacy sends claims into AIS, right? And I remember distinctly looking at transactions. Forgive me, I tell the story all the time, but
that's okay.
Yeah, I distinctly remember like looking at transactions coming in for pharmacy claims, and over time, I would know that if I saw pharmacy transactions for flu medication being dispensed in St. Anne, Ocho Rios, for example, or from pharmacies in Ocho Rios, that in a week or two or less, I would start to see the same happening in Mobay, which means that the flu took a certain amount of time to spread from Ocho Rios to Montego Bay. So being from Mobay, I'd always call my father and say, Pops, start taking vitamin C, our flu soon reach down there. He'd never listen and always end up getting the flu, right? But the point is, that was the first time I realized the power of data, because you can imagine just having visibility of data and then being able to predict a future event.
Right.
In this case, the flu, and then just imagining, if the government had access to this data, what they would do with that data in terms of from a preventative medicine standpoint.
Right, giving the populace the insight.
Right, and also just putting things in place to stop the spread
of the flu,
in Ocho Rios at the time.
So how did the Blue Dot name now kind of culminate that experience? Why did you come up with that name?
Right. So to finish the story, I was like, well, which company in Jamaica is doing anything data related? At the time, there was none.
When was it started? 13 years? That was after the 13 year?
That was at the 13-year mark. So Blue Dot officially started in 2015. 2015? Yeah, early January 2015. And it was started because I figured there was a need for companies to focus on data and data analytics, and nobody was talking about it. Like big data wasn't even a buzzword as much as it is now.
True.
Right. So that's essentially why one day I decided that I was going to start a company.
Working at AIS 13 years, starting Blue Dot in 2015, the relationships that you formed within that 13-year process, would you say that some of those relationships kind of helped you to navigate the business world while starting Blue Dot?
Yeah, man, for sure. Like I said, I learned a lot from Mr. Halsall, and I literally grew up there. I started working there at 17, and left when I was 30. And, I literally bawled when I was handing in my resignation letter, because of course there's a lot of uncertainty as well. I only had 3 months worth of salary saved up, and not even salary, 3 months worth of rent saved up. So I had to make it within the 3 months.
3 months.
Within the 3 months, right?
So did you get any funding? Was there any funding at that point in time?
So Kimala Bennett from the lab, right? Big up to her. She came on as a co-founder initially. Oh. Right. So I was leveraging her network and her infrastructure. Right. I mean, that's a whole other story how we met and pitched into her and yada yada. But yeah, man, so big up Kimala. Kimala boasts a lot of people, more than you might know. So she was a co-founder, and I was leveraging her network and her office, etc. when I started.
Just started.
Yeah. But I had 3 months to make it. Yeah.
And when did you get that first client?
So with her, it was a strategic partnership. So the lab, as you know, they do a lot of work for big clients, the advertising, same as Apeiron. My first client came through her, through the lab.
And can you state the name of that first client?
I believe it was Honeybun. It was either Honeybun or Rubis, one of them. Yeah.
And the reason why I asked you is because it's coming from, I'm going through that process now where, having a startup and navigating that environment of getting strategic partners, building business relationships, and kind of right now you kind of understand the importance of it when you're actually at and playing in the game.
Yeah, man.
You understand?
Yeah,
So
man.
my offshoot question now is, were there business relationships that didn't result in a desired output? Or were there terrible business relationships that could have ruined what you wanted to start?
I mean, for sure. There's, you see, when you just starting out, especially, so at the time I was a nobody, right? Not many connections. I never had the JC and Campion network here in town. In Kingston, not a lot of people have and seem to leverage. You know, I mean, yes, I went to Monroe, but I wasn't tapped into that network at the time either. So yeah, you know, it's consistently trying to network yourself, build your brand, meet the right people, and of course, in some cases, you meet the wrong people, and and you know, form relationships, and you know, take on investors that may not have been the best fit, or just mentors or board. Like, there's just so much different learning in the whole process, you know. But it is a process that everybody should go through.
And even, you know, you said taking on, I won't get too deep into this, but you said taking on investors that aren't particularly aligned with your goals and visions. But sometimes, and of course, speaking from experience, probably you're presented with limited options, and you probably want to tap the one that's closest to you, because they can possibly give you what you're looking for in the moment.
Exactly.
But you don't necessarily see how it might transgress beyond that. Right? So
you have to do what you have to do. Yeah.
So you just have to kind of roll with the punches. And
the investment ecosystem in Jamaica isn't as mature as it could be or should be, or what would be desired. There is 2 angel networks. There's Alpha Angels outside of Mobay. There's First Angels, which I just became a board member of this morning, actually.
All right. This morning. Congrats.
Yeah, man. Thanks. That's ironic. Yeah, that's ironic that I'm now a member of an angel network and investing in companies. But anyways, that's wild. But yeah, so there's that, and then there's Delta Capital now, which came out of SSL Venture Capital Limited.
That's Zachary Harding.
And then there's the banks who won't give you
$1.
Yes, because especially if you don't have collateral. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's difficult.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it comes with the territory. You kind of have to understand that.
And in Jamaica, you have to just work with
it. Right. So 3 months of rent, right? Was there ever a period within that 3 months where you actually ran out of the rent and you're like, oh crap, how am I going to pay for this? And the business wasn't where it was at, and you kind of have to tap on people, maybe family, kind of, you know, try and balance the scale.
All my family is broke, bro.
All your families.
There's no family for me to tap into. But no, I still go through those things every day. To this day, I still have those issues. So definitely, yes. If you go a couple years back on my Instagram, you will see where I posted one time that, you know, I pawned my car just to meet payroll. There's this place on Eastwood Park Road called Good As New that, God bless them, like I've pawned everything from my TV to my fridge to my car, everything just to meet payroll. You know what I mean? And to this day, if we have cash flow issues, I will not take a salary, pay the staff, and then, you know, wait until we get some receivables into.
Powerful. Powerful. So what was your support system then during that period? What could you lean on? Or was it leaning I don't know, on yourself?
So Tyrone and I talk about this all the time, right? Like back then, there was no like, now we have a good entrepreneurship like ecosystem. Spirit, right? and like man, myself and a lot of the other entrepreneurs are very close, and we actually have a WhatsApp group where we lean on each other, and we go drink, and we talk about mental health a lot. A lot of us are in therapy. That's something I've recently not ashamed to discuss that. Yeah, you need to go and see a therapist. If you're in business, you need to take care of your mental health as much as your physical health. So, but that's a whole side story. Anyways, so yeah, definitely there were times especially in that 3 month when I just started, that things were rough, and it's over the course of the next couple of years, they've just always been rolling, that roller coaster of get a client, get a big project, but the receivables is late,
Feel on it.
Yeah, man. A lot of these big corporate companies have 30 to 60-day payment terms. Right? And what does that mean as an entrepreneur when you have staff to pay every 30 days?
Right.
It's just juggling, but it's part of the course, unfortunately.
And I'm glad you actually brought that up, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was the responsibility of actually, meeting that payroll. Because I think what a lot of people have to understand is that when you start a company, when you employ people, it's almost what should I say? It's a responsibility that I don't think you can necessarily explain to everybody for them to understand.
Yeah.
And they use the salary that you give them to take care of their families. What happens if your company isn't able to provide for them?
Right.
And the pressures from that, it must have been immense.
Yeah, man. So the two greatest stresses in life outside of health and family issues and whatnot is payroll, in my opinion, is payroll and taxes.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to dig into two of them.
Yeah. So like not meeting payroll for me, because I know what it's like to, and depending on salary, the 25th of the month, if you not get your money, dog name your supper, right? Especially if like you're juggling credit card and them something and the payment due and bail if I come check you and one bag or something, right? So I know what that's like. So I've always promised my staff that no matter what, I am going to meet payroll, right? Might be 1 day late or 2 days late, but you're going to get your money. And it's something that I personally take very, very seriously. Like I've said, I've gone through extreme lengths just to meet the payroll.
All right. And since you're speaking about the Blue Dot family now, there are a lot of people who have heard the name of the company. It's almost a buzzwords now. Blue Dot.
Really?
Everybody hears it and is like, all right, because even people have been speculating on IPO, but I won't get into that yet. Right?
Thank you.
But at the same time, there still seems to be a lot of people say there's a lot of mystery around it in the same way, right?
Okay.
So we want you to dig a little bit deeper into what Blue Dot does, right, and how its services benefit the clients you serve.
Okay. Blue Dot Insights, I like to say that we're in the business of peace of mind. Might sound strange, but what we provide is peace of mind to our clients in decision making. So, we provide the data and the insights, or the insights from data and research, to help our clients to sleep better at night, because they know that they made the best possible decision based on the insights that we provided to them. So we're in market research. So we do a lot of market research for clients, from customer satisfaction to, profiling consumers, who they are, what they like, what they want, what they don't want. That's on the research side. We do quite a bit of neuroscience, consumer neuroscience, which is digging deeper into human behavior and understanding biometric and physiological signals from the body. So we track eye movement, so we know
Like if a certain color comes up, like what's the reaction of the person?
Well, that too, but let's take package design, for example. We have eye tracking goggles that when we walk down a supermarket aisle, we know what catches people's eyes and what doesn't catch the eye. And when our clients are changing packaging on products, we tell them which one has the highest findability and seeability on a shelf, or which package do customers prefer. We do facial coding, which measures the muscles in the face for micro expression. So in a TV commercial, we can tell what emotion is being evoked while the respondent is watching the commercial. So if there's a negative emotion, then we literally say to a company like Apeiron, delete that scene and replace it with a scene that has more positive emotion, because we're measuring the emotions that the consumers are evoking.
And as hard as it seems, there are some companies that still aren't aligned or believe that this type of data analysis is necessary for their products and services and customers.
For sure.
What do you do to educate them in that scenario?
So a most recent example is that there's a big company that put out a commercial the other day, had something to do with an infant, and they had to remove the commercial. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Popular commercial, because it triggered some negativity that of an incident happened in Jamaica. So they spent all this money on creating this ad, put it out there, and then they had to yank it because there was negative backlash, right? So, it's really just using examples like that. When we started, and even to this day, we in the Caribbean, we have a culture of making gut decisions based on our gut, right? Or if you're coming out with a business, you send it in your family WhatsApp group or a logo and you say, what do you think about this? But that's just one group of yes man, right? Or you send it in your high school group and say, yo, man, them wanna feel, right?
Everybody gonna say, good.
Yeah, man, run with the youth, right? But then they aren't necessarily who your target is and who your target consumer is, and they just represent a small subset of who you need to be getting feedback from.
So then do that then exposes that business to a wider subset, and a scientifically
or statistically representative sample.
Okay. And for instance, so Jamaica is one market right now that Blue Dot is currently in. Are you in any other markets right now? What's the plan?
So I traveled to Trinidad on Sunday, and I'm speaking at a conference in Trinidad on Sunday, but the following week I'll be there setting up Blue Dot over there.
Really?
We already have team members there, we have staff there already. They've been with us for a year, but we've just been quietly building out our team over there. But when I get there next week is go hard time.
Right. Yeah. And the one thing I will ask, I don't know how much sense this will make to you, but let me ask it anyways. So Blue Dot helps these customers, for instance, in mapping customer behavioral patterns, product placement and all these things, right? Man. But what metrics does Blue Dot track to then become a bit more efficient or a bit more effective with serving the customers with these services? Like what do you track to actually to boost the productivity of Blue Dot?
When they come back. When they come back, right? So we have clients who exclusively use us. There's right now at this very moment, we're doing surveys for the four largest insurance companies, right? And that's typically not common because they're they're competing,
right?
But when we said to them, hey, we're doing work for this other company, they're like, no, but we know that you are we like what you do for us, right? So so that's one metric. But we went through and still going through a whole exercise now where we're looking at all of our KPIs and just figuring out how to grow the company, right?
And in that growth, seeing an article come out with GK and Blue Dot acquiring a 50% stake, if I'm not mistaken. 60% stake in Blue Dot, if I'm not mistaken, right? And what has that, I would say, let me say partnership, yielded right now in terms of where Blue Dot is going? How is that materialized?
There's a pretty popular I don't know if you read Harvard Business Reviews, but there's a pretty popular HBR case study called The Founder's Dilemma. You should read it.
Okay.
It essentially talks about founders that want to be kings and founders that want to be that want to grow. Like the king founder, doesn't share up any of the pie, stays there and tries to grow the company, himself, right? And then I don't remember what the term is, but essentially, Mr. Halsall always says that a slice of a melon is greater than the sum of a whole grape, right? So 10% of a $100 company is, you've heard that analogy before, right? So that's a roundabout way of saying, I took the decision to sell 60% of my company to GK because it made the right sense at the time, right? And even now, of course, they're a strategic partner, so it goes both ways. Right. Grace Kennedy has very ambitious plans to be a global company, of course, very soon.
And they're already multinational.
Yeah, they're already multinational, right? They can't compete with the Nestle's and the Crafts, etc., without data, right? Or without understanding consumers, right? You just can't do it, right? So for them, that's the strategic aspect of it, and of course they want ROI, and there's other things, right? For us is I got to stop worrying about payroll for a little bit, right?
Yeah. And it's a nice feeling, right?
Yeah, man, and of course it does come with some business from them.